Story 1, From Heartbreak to Leadership, I Becoming My Ex-Wife's Affair Partner's Boss. Part 2. I, Seth M30, started a new job about 6 months ago. I switched companies to become this new one's director of projects. Huge pay increase for me. At the time they actually needed both a director and an assistant director. I was really excited about the position. On the first day, I met early with the VP. I, along with the assistant director, were going to be introduced to our team today. I had arrived first and was chatting with the VP when the AD arrived. Much to my surprise, it was Leland, M30, the guy my ex-wife cheated with. He looked more shocked than I did, I'm sure. Kind of funny now thinking back to how big his eyes got when he saw me. The VP was noticeably confused, but we played it off. The rest of the day went on as normal, tense, but normal. At the end of the day, Leland approached me wanting to talk. I told him sternly, I don't need you to say anything, I don't want to hear from you on anything other than work. I don't know how you managed to get this position, but you better do your job and do it well, because I will be making sure everything is perfect. I then turned and walked away. He stopped me and said, I am qualified for this position. I know you think I'm just a piece of shit. And I was. I'm sorry for all that, but I'll show you, I'm worthy of this chance. I began walking away, and he yelled one more thing, also, I left Madison. I didn't believe him one bit. Why would I? This guy wrecked my marriage. Well, in the 6 months we have been working together, he has actually been really valuable. He knows his stuff and he always comes through before deadline. I only talk with him about work, and kind of give the cold shoulder to anything else. He is friendly but professional and respectful with me and the other staff members. He has not once since that first day brought up Kara or Madison. Anyway, I'm starting to feel bad. I do talk more personally with the other staff. Simple stuff like asking how their weekend was or how the kids are doing. I don't ask him about anything other than work. Some of the staff will go out on Fridays and I started to notice that he was never invited. I decided to ask the young, no-filter intern why, and he told me, first off, everyone loves you, especially compared to the last guy. Alina picked up on you not liking him, got to be a reason for that, so we all keep our distance. Well fuck, he's getting exiled because of me, which really isn't fair. Our past aside, he is really valuable to the team, and hasn't done anything to warrant exclusion from the others. So I started being more personable with him over the past few months. Asking how he's doing, how the weekend was. We started talking sports, which led to talking other stuff. We have a lot in common actually. I still don't like him very much because of our history, but sometimes I feel like Ricky Bobby in that movie after Cal moves into his house like, why am I still talking to you? Anyway, that gave everyone the okay to be friendlier with him, and I heard him get invited to a poker night the other day, so I guess mission accomplished. That brings us to now. I have to evaluate the employees in my department. Within that I can also recommend for termination, renewal, or transfer to another department. There is another assistant director spot within the company that is open, and with my recommendation I'm sure the transfer would get accepted. He would make the same, it's a straight parallel move. He has been a great asset to the team, I'm just not sure about continuing this long term. Edit. Okay everyone, I got it. You read back through my previous stuff and want an update on what happened with Kara. We were good, the relationship was fun and exciting. However, when we got to around the 7-month mark we both started to change. I began to become more insecure about her. I have no doubt this stems from the trauma I suffered in my marriage. It was a me problem. I was a little suffocating, and I had a lot of anxiety when she was on her phone or going out without me. This led to me being a bit passive-aggressive. I owned it then and we talked about it a lot. At the same time she was nearing her graduation and getting her BSN. She was only 21 when we got together and had been mostly in long-term relationships. She had just gotten out of a very controlling one with Leland when we started together. After that relationship she often told me she felt way more confident about herself. I could tell she was changing into a much stronger and more independent person. A person who wanted to go and discover herself to the fullest extent. I sought out therapy as I had never processed my failed marriage. She sought out independence. Ultimately we made a decision together to end things. It was very amicable. We remained friends. I was invited to her family graduation party and had a nice time, and while slightly awkward the weirdness was minimal. We still talk some through social media but each have our own lives going. Sorry, not much to the story. I think if it were a few years from now and we were meeting it may have led to more, but for where we both were in life it was just a matter of right person, wrong time. Maybe someday we will reconnect, you never know, though I'm not holding my breath as I have seen that she has been seeing someone else. I, Madison F29, have a serious problem. I currently work for a fairly large company. However, the company is going through a bit of a downturn, and some layoffs are expected. I may be one of these. In an effort to get ahead of the game, I have begun applying for positions with some of the other large companies here in the greater Cleveland area. While I have interviews scheduled with 2 employers, these are parallel moves to what I am currently doing. There is a third place I have applied that has an assistant director of marketing position open. This would be a promotion, and I am qualified for it. I have not received a call back for an interview yet, and I believe there may be a sinister reason behind that. My ex-husband, Seth M30, and my ex-boyfriend, Leland M30, both work there. They also appear to work together on the same team, which is surprising as they both hated each other at one point in time. Each of these men blame me for the failure of our relationship, which is very far from the truth. My ex-husband Seth and I were together for 4 years. Things were great for most of that time. We had clear roles within our relationship and they seemed to work for us. We both worked, and he handled a lot of the domestic tasks while I made sure things were organized, planned, and accounted for. Our problems began when we decided to open our relationship. At first we believed it would bring us closer together by improving our communication and intimacy. I had a coworker who was in one and she was very open with how much it improved her relationship. Seth and I talked at great lengths about it, came up with very specific boundaries, and agreed to give it a shot. I made us dating profiles and from there we were off. I was the first one to get a date. I went on that date and got home just a little later than I expected. This made Seth freak out and threaten me with divorce. I was taken aback because we had agreed to try this, we talked through a lot of stuff ahead of time, and he still had a very aggressive reaction. I told him we could stop and go at a much slower pace. After more discussion we decided to try swinging, as we felt that would be easier for Seth. At the same time I had a coworker named Leland, my later live-in boyfriend. He had a girlfriend named Kara. They were into swinging also. We all made plans together to swap, at a mutual friend's lifestyle party. Everything was good, it seemed we had all vibed together and were on the same page. At the party, Leland and I wanted to try swapping with our significant others. We asked them to join us in a private room so we could test how far we wanted this to go. As Leland and I made our way to some private rooms, we realized that Seth and Kara hadn't followed us despite us directly asking them to, and this being the plan the whole time. Leland and I decided to try and find them. When we did we were shocked to see they had joined a full-blown orgy. Each of them having sex with multiple people in the room. We stood and watched hoping to get their attention. They were so wrapped up in their carnal exploits they never even noticed us. The worst part was watching my husband break our #1 rule and not use protection with Kara. He even finished inside of her. After we left the party, I tried to tell Seth how he made me feel. I was hurt that he didn't use protection, and I was hurt that he abandoned the plan of swapping. This made him angry and he left our apartment for a hotel room. I found out later that he invited Kara there and the two of them spent several days together. He would serve me with divorce papers later that week and block me on everything. I never got to see him one-on-one again. Having both lost the loves of our lives, Leland and I sought each other for comfort. This blossomed into a loving relationship and we eventually moved in together. Over time we decided to try opening the relationship. Just as before we discussed rules and boundaries thoroughly. I began to date some, yet Leland only made minimal effort. I considered backing off but found he was only interested in sleeping with me on days I was returning from being with another man. In order to make him happy I began going out more often. I thought everything was going well, until one day I came home from an overnight trip with friends to find all of his things gone. He had moved, and quit the job at our mutual place of employment. He just disappeared from my life. Now I am trying to find employment at the very place they both work, and it is the only place I have applied that hasn't requested an interview. I am having a hard time believing that, given my skills and experience, this employer would not at very least give me an interview unless someone was purposely trying to blackball me. Given the way they both simply ghosted me after years together. I am not completely surprised by this, But I had hoped enough time had passed that they would get over whatever imagined slights they believe I have committed against them. I am considering taking action against them in whatever form that may require. Hopefully, it will not come to that, and they will simply see the error of their ways and endorse my hiring. I, Leland M30, was recently contacted by my ex-girlfriend, Madison, F29. Madison was once married to my boss Seth, M30. She is upset because her employer is downsizing. She has had success in finding similar jobs to the one she currently has, however, the company Seth and I work for had an opening that would be a promotion for her. She believed that Seth and I were blackballing her from getting the position. In reality, we didn't even know she had applied, as neither of us is in HR, and she isn't applying for a spot in our department. It comes as no surprise that she would create this "out to get me" narrative. She was the most delusional and controlling woman I have ever met. I consider our entire relationship to be my penance for how terrible of a person I was at the time. Anyway, now that the position has been filled, Madison wants revenge and another shot at an assistant director position. Her plan is convoluted and borderline insane. Our department does have an opening, but it's an entry-level spot. Madison's plan involves her applying for that position. Seth would be part of this, and would be notified of the application because he is the director. Most likely he will nix that application immediately. Madison is then going to create false text records using old messages between her and Seth. When she inevitably doesn't get the position, she is going to go to HR with this, claiming Seth was harassing and targeting her. She wants me to back her up, claiming I saw an altercation between them. She wants me to also lie and claim that Seth often talks of getting back at his ex-wife. The reality is he never mentions her, and shivers whenever her name is said. One of the guys once mentioned seeing this really old movie, Billy Madison, and Seth jumped like someone just lunged at him from the shadows. Now Madison is selling this pretty hard to me. She keeps saying that if Seth gets terminated or transferred, then I'll be the new director. Thing is, that is probably true. I have done really well there and I want that job. She thinks if I got the director spot I could then hire her as the AD. I would never fucking do that. Seth and I have actually worked really well together. Even showing glimpses of being friendly of late. I have done all this work to be the person I want to be, yet I keep thinking it may be worth taking this chance and getting the promotion earlier. My ultimate goal is to be a VP. I should do the right thing, but I'm not going to lie, it is tempting. Update: hey everybody, it all went down this past Thursday. Madison was correct. When her application came in and Seth got notified, he immediately nixed it. Madison got the usual, "Thanks for applying but we're not going further" email. She promptly came in the next day and walked straight to the HR department. I didn't know she had done this until I got summoned to HR. I walked in and they wanted me to substantiate some claims that were being made. A few hours after this, I got a text from Seth. He sounded upset and shaken. He wanted to get some answers and told me he knew if Madison was involved then I probably was as well. I told him I'd tell him in person. When I arrived at the bar, he handed me a fresh beer and said, "Thank you." I cut him off. It was the right thing to do, but if I'm being honest, I did it just as much for me as anyone else. I needed to exorcise that demon just as much as you did. We had a beer and I told him all about how she had approached me and was planning on getting back at him. How she said I'd be the next director and then she could come in as AD. Like I would ever trust that succubus to be around me again. What I did was print out all of our exchanges where she was planning this. I also vouched for Seth's character, stating he would never do something like this. The evidence spoke for itself, and from what I understand, Madison has now blackballed herself from every position within the company, probably at every branch and every affiliate. What can I say? It sucks to suck. Seth had been brought to HR at the end of the day and made aware of the situation, which is why he was upset when he called me. We drank our one beer and had a few laughs. He thanked me again and left. I decided to stay and have one more. When I got back home, I made it an early night. I went to bed thinking, I really like the new me. 10 years ago I, Seth M37, met my now good friend Leland, M37, under not so ideal circumstances. I was married to a controlling and manipulative woman named Madison. Madison and Leland were co-workers, and she got the hots for him. Instead of divorcing me, or just cheating behind my back, she decided it would be easiest on her conscience to force me into an open relationship and swinging. We ended up swinging with Leland and his then girlfriend Kara, F31 now. It went badly and all the relationships ended in turmoil. What happened after was I began a relationship with Kara that lasted about 8 months. At the same time, Leland and Madison forced a toxic relationship with each other for about 2 years. During that 2 years, Leland came to realize that he was his own worst enemy, and not a good person at all. He has spent years since becoming a better person and truly has changed to be someone I think everyone he now meets admires. We ended up working at the same place about a year into his transformation. I was his boss. It was tense and awkward at first, and he has told me more than once he wanted to run away and quit. He didn't though and stuck it out because he wanted to prove that he was a person of good character, especially to someone he wronged to the level he had wronged me. This all came to a head when Madison resurfaced and tried to get me fired for my job. I'm not sure she would have succeeded anyway, but Leland stood up for me and proved that Madison was being vindictive. This made my dealings with HR quick and painless. We continued to work together for another 5 years. We had begun to become friendly with each other prior to Madison's stunt. After that it was a slow process, but we began to converse more and more at the office. Got beers after work together. This just grew until we became good friends. Before long, Sundays were spent together watching the Browns lose. I was a groomsman in his wedding 3 years ago, and this past June we both made the trip to the Chase Center to watch the GOAT's final game at the age of 49. This past year I got a huge promotion and am now a VP. This one came with a relocation to Phoenix, Arizona. Leland, who had been promoted to director of a different department 2 years ago, was moved back to replace me, much to the delight of the staff. We have kept in touch and he is actually going to come visit me when the Browns play at the Cards next month. We figure we gotta get this in, as his wife Kinley, F34, is 3 months pregnant now with their first child, and road trips are probably going to be few and far between once that baby comes. Last week, I was out for a run through the local park near my house. I spot this hot mom in the distance running towards me pushing a jogging stroller. Nike Pros, sports bra. I'm not joking, I literally have the thought that I haven't seen anyone make sportswear look that good since Kara. As we get closer I come to realize that the universe really is trolling me. Hot mom is Kara. We both stop running and stare at each other dumbfounded. She says, "Seth. Oh my God, what are you doing here?" as she walks up and gives me a hug. I can't believe it. We strike up a conversation. We had kind of fallen out of touch. I am still on social media and had noticed a few years earlier that she disappeared from everything. When I asked about that, she said, "I just felt like it was too much of a distraction. I was wasting a lot of time doom scrolling, so dropped all of them. I started a Facebook. I don't have FB, just to kind of chronicle Jacob's life, but I don't do much on socials otherwise. It was mostly a quick checkup. She is a single mom. I moved here for work, etc., etc." We exchanged phone numbers and each went back to our respective runs. We have been talking all week, almost non-stop. I have those butterflies all over again, just like I did all those years ago. After she graduated and we broke up, she got a job in a hospital around Cleveland. When she started a new relationship, we became more distant, which is to be expected. I knew that relationship ended thanks to social media, and that the one with Jacob's father, Brad M34, began. It was shortly after she started dating Brad that she dropped her socials. Brad was a young surgeon then. They dated for 2 years. Brad was not someone who enjoyed Cleveland. He was born and raised there, but was tired of being there. He began applying for positions around the country. When he got the offer to come to Phoenix, he asked Kara to move with him. They would be moving in together and the plan was to take their relationship on to the next level, ultimately marrying. Kara said the issue started almost immediately upon moving in together. It wasn't any one thing that either was doing, they just were not compatible cohabitating. There were more fights. She said all his little things were magnified, and she knows all her little annoyances were the same for him. After a little more than a year they decided to call it quits. Kara got an apartment and was moved out about 2 weeks when she figured out she was pregnant. This part has been as drama-free as possible. She tells me Brad was excited to be a dad. They briefly talked about whether they should give it another shot. They chose not to, agreeing they could be friends but not husband and wife. Which has been true. Kara says they are very friendly and talk regularly. They have a good custody agreement, splitting evenly. Jacob does 2 weeks with Kara, and 2 weeks with Brad. They got holidays figured out, celebrated his first birthday together, and Brad even made a big deal out of Kara's first Mother's Day, which she then reciprocated come Father's Day. Brad has just gotten engaged to someone and Kara says the future stepmom seems like a good person. I have been telling her almost everything about myself since our breakup. How I've moved up the corporate ladder and that's how I ended up here in Phoenix. I've been a serial dater, not really by choice. My longest relationship in this span is about a year, but I've been in brief relationships about 8 other times. I was fine for the first 2 to 3 years after Kara and I broke up. Well, not really fine, but I was getting over Madison then, and getting my mind right. But the last 6 to 7 years, when I really started to feel like myself, and was ready to find the one. I have mostly just been kicking myself for letting Kara go in the first place. This I'm sure has been a reason for my inability to find a long-term meaningful relationship. We have a date for this Saturday night. It's Brad's time with Jacob, but she's meeting up with them to take Jacob to a trunk or treat at the hospital they both work at. Afterwards we're going on our first date. This is where my problem arises, and maybe it's not even a problem. I could very well be overthinking this. I haven't mentioned Leland at all, didn't tell her about us working together or Madison trying to get me fired, or that he's essentially my best friend now. It may be a little selfish on my part, I'm just not sure how to bring it up, or if I should. I mean, I know he was bad to her, but that was a long time ago and he really is a totally different person now. I just don't want to screw this up. I have been dreaming about reconnecting with her for years now. I'm afraid if I tell her too early she will cut out of the relationship before it can even start. I also don't necessarily want this to be a topic during our date. I know I need to say something soon, it's just hard not knowing what the outcome would be. Kara, F31, recently reconnected with an ex-boyfriend, Seth M37. Seth and I made an attempt at having a relationship a long time ago, when we were both dealing with a lot of issues. It ended well enough, we stayed friends for a while but faded apart over time. I began dating again and eventually met Brad. Brad and I were together 3 years before also breaking up amicably. However, we did have a child, Jacob M1, together. Last month I ran into Seth while on a run and we picked back up right where we left off all those years ago. The conversation has been easy and comforting, and the sex is just as amazing as before. I am really falling for him again, and this time we are both a lot more mature. Or at least I thought we were. Due to my custody agreement, I have only been seeing Seth for 2 weeks at a time, every 2 weeks. I am just not ready to insert someone into Jacob's life until I know we are going to be serious and long-term. So we met during my time, and just messaged on the phone for a week. Brad's time came, so Seth and I spent 2 whole weeks all over each other. Now it's my time again and we've mostly been messaging this week. I have another friend, Emily F26, who has a 2-year-old. Emily is not a single mom, but her husband is a truck driver and often gone for extended periods. Emily and I hang out together a lot. We also help each other out. We watch each other's kid here and there so the other can have a little break to run errands or get a quick shower. Emily came over earlier today to let the kids play and have breakfast with me. I told her how things were going between Seth and I, and she told me about what was going on with her. I really needed to go to the grocery store. Emily told me to go ahead and just run that errand, that she would watch the kids. It is way easier shopping solo, so I took her up on the offer. I knew Seth was going to the Cardinals game later, and he had a friend in from back home he was going with. I hadn't asked much about the friend, and he didn't offer any details either. I now know why. When I was done with the grocery store, I thought I would pop by Seth's real quick just to say hi, and maybe meet his friend. I was just missing him after not seeing him in person for a week. I definitely didn't want to intrude on this time, so I was planning just a quick 5 to 10 minute pop and then I would use getting back to Jacob as an excuse and leave. I knew they were planning on heading down a little early and hitting a pre-game bar or something. As I pulled into his driveway, they were coming out of the house. Seth was already out the door saying something back into it as I got out of my car and yelled, "Hey," in a sweet tone. He turned but his face kind of sank, which threw me off. Then a moment later out walked Leland, my ex-boyfriend from years earlier. Leland had been very controlling and manipulative, and put me through a lot. I was very young then and let him isolate me from my friends, and ultimately push me into doing things I didn't want to do. I was absolutely startled and angry by Leland being there. I turned to Seth, "This is your friend." He looked at me with a shocked expression and said, "I can explain." Leland began stammering off some sort of apology that I ignored. I just turned and walked back to my car saying nothing. Seth was pleading with me to hear him out, but I just drove off. Seth messaged me my whole ride home. When I pulled into the driveway, I responded, "Don't message me anymore, I need time to process, go to your game, don't contact me again, I'll contact you when and if I'm ready." That was about 12 hours ago. When I first ran into Seth again, thousands of miles from home, I thought it must be fate. Now it just seems like another slap across the face. I keep going back and forth between hearing him out and cutting him off. Emily thinks I should at least listen, as she doesn't think she's ever seeing me happier. But I don't know, how could he be friends with Leland? He was just as wronged as I was. Ugh, I don't know what to do. I, Seth M39, have had one crazy dating life. I almost began to think I was cursed. I had a failed marriage by the time I was 27, and nearly double-digit failed relationships after that. Then life threw the most perfect woman back to me, only for me to almost blow it again. Well, finally today, I will be marrying Kara, F33. I'm not sure this would have happened if not for my best friend, Leland, M39. 2 years ago I messed up. I hid my friendship with Leland from Kara. As many of you who have followed this story know, Leland is Kara's ex-boyfriend. He was controlling, manipulative, selfish, and immature when they were together. Their relationship ended on a particularly sour note. Kara swore she would never tolerate his presence ever again. Leland had a rough couple of years after their breakup. He changed completely though from those times. You want to talk about turning yourself around, he deserves his own book on that. For the last decade he has been the most loyal, dedicated, caring, selfless friend to everyone in his life. I hid our friendship from Kara for the first month after we reconnected on the other side of the country. That was until she discovered it for herself. I was so stupid to do that. It was just fear, I didn't know how she would react and I was too scared of losing the relationship again. She quickly exited when she figured it out and told me not to contact her until she was ready. She waited over a week. I wrongly assumed she was just waiting for her week with her son Jacob to be over before contacting me, but she waited several more days after that before calling. That was pure torture. I went over to her place, she had a very intense look about her. Right after we sat to talk she opened with, "So why didn't you tell me?" "I just didn't want to lose you again, I was going to tell you, I knew I had to, I just didn't want to screw things up. I have thought about you every day for years now," I replied. She continued, "I do not want to be lied to, I do not want things kept from me." I responded, "I know, I'm so sorry, I will never do this again. I just know how you feel about him, but he is a totally different person. I have just as much right to hold a grudge against him as anybody, but life threw us together also, and I came to see firsthand that people really can change." She cut me off a bit, "I believe he is different. He tried reaching out to me several years ago with an email I never read. After I discovered you too, I went ahead and read it. It seemed like a very heartfelt apology. I wasn't completely convinced. Then I got a Facebook friend request from his wife Kinley. She convinced me. I was like, really?" She smiled a bit, "Yes, she did, we had a nice long talk about what's gone on between all of you the last decade. That doesn't let you completely off the hook though. I don't want anything else omitted. Do you understand?" I nodded. "Should I tell you about the time Madison tried to get me fired then?" She said, "Yes you should, but order food first. We have been inseparable since then. A year ago she moved in with me, and I have really enjoyed being a stepdad, soon to be officially, to Jacob. He will be our little ring bearer today. Kara has warmed up to Leland over time, which is probably easier to do when you live 2,000 miles apart. We even all went on vacation together 6 months ago and he is the best man in our wedding. I am excited to make it official, just 4 hours from now. Our reconnection also gives us a much more appropriate story for when people ask, "So how did you all meet?" than the reality, because saying, "We met during a swinger orgy," is a bit of a TMI. Update. I have to share this with everyone. The ceremony was wonderful, it was small and our best friends and families all made the trip to Phoenix for us. We honeymooned in Vegas and had a great time, but kept a few days on the end to go back to Cleveland and just visit with family. On one of the days there, Kara and I joined Leland and Kinley for lunch. We were sitting at a table in the bar area enjoying our meal when we saw a woman come in and pick up some takeout from the bar. She turned around and took a few steps before looking up. It was 5 surprised Pikachu faces all around. Madison stopped, seemingly stunned. She was standing there scanning across the four of us. It was probably only for a matter of 2 seconds, but it felt so long. She didn't know Kinley but could probably put two and two together. Kinley is well aware of Madison and has seen pictures before. Then just as fast, Madison got this indignant look on her face, gave us all the finger, then just walked right out of the restaurant not saying anything. The four of us died laughing, just minutes and minutes of uncontrollable laughing. Story 2, I found them in our bed. Last week, I was completely and utterly happy. Head over heels in love with my fiancée. We've been together for years. We found out in May she was pregnant. Life didn't feel like it could get any better. I'm an essential worker and still unfortunately have to travel from time to time for my job. I have been trying to cut down on plane travel and will drive if able. Last week I was scheduled to be gone all week, but ended up being able to leave several days ahead of time, but wanted to surprise my fiancée. It was an 8-hour drive, but ended up being close to 14 because of traffic and poor timing on my part. I get home around 10:30 p.m. and find her and a co-worker in our bed together having sex. She's an assistant producer at a local news station and he's one of the anchors. She immediately tries to defuse the situation and says it's not what I think it is and not to jump to conclusions. He jumps up and puts his clothes on and leaves. I was so angry I was seeing stars. She tries to talk to me about it, but I don't want to hear it. I leave and call a buddy and have been staying with him for the past 6 days. I spoke to her on the phone yesterday and she told me it was a one-time thing and she feels like the passion has been missing in our relationship, which I don't agree with at all. I think she was trying to justify the cheating and gaslight me. I'm so angry and she won't stop harassing me. I don't know what to do. We're going to be parents and I don't want anything to do with her, but I'm stuck with her for the next 18 years, minimum. She hasn't even apologized. She just keeps trying to justify her actions. Update, so sorry for taking so long to update. This week has been hellish. Met with my friend's lawyer, family law buddy early last week. He contacted her and threatened to go public about their affair so she was more forthcoming with information. She told him they had been sleeping together for over a year. She's 85% sure the baby is mine because they never have unprotected sex, but doesn't want to have a DNA test until the baby is born. Lawyer believes the baby is the other guy's based on this comment. I haven't fully moved out yet, just moved a lot of my clothes into my buddy's place. The lawyer thinks I should sell the house and not let her buy me out because he doesn't think she has the funds and would BS me. Also sorry if I didn't answer you, I got a ton of messages here and in DMs. I tried to answer any much as I could. If you have any other questions, I'll be on for a bit. I'm still blown away by the amount of people checking up on me both in this thread and via DM. I really appreciate the support and love during this trying time. On to what you're here for. We did multiple DNA tests, the baby is mine. He was born a few weeks ago and is by far the greatest thing to happen to me. He makes all this mess worth it. His mother and I are not together. I strictly speak to her about the baby and that is all. House is sold. Closing is March 1st, but we do not need to be there. Still living with my buddy, hoping to buy a new home in the next few months for my son and I. I did not go public with the affair out of respect for our son. Her employers know and she was terminated. He is still working there. I'm not sure what their relationship consists of and I don't care. I'm guessing he bolted. Update, I made this throwaway over 4 years ago when I had just found out my ex-fiancée cheated on me with her coworker. I actually completely forgot I made this account until I was going through my email to delete stuff yesterday. I figured I'd log back in and give all the people in situations similar to and worse than mine some hope. I was incredibly broken when this happened and tried to put all my feelings aside when our son was born. I'm ashamed to share my feelings eventually caught up with me and my ex and I went at it, verbally, on multiple occasions. Shortly after I realized I let her break me and started going to therapy regularly. I went a couple times before that and didn't think it helped, but once I was consistent it was a game changer. As a man, I was taught to suck it up and move, but crying and talking about issues does help. I mean honestly talking about them, not in a stoic way like I had been doing. My ex and I are actually on friendly terms. She is also in therapy. I'm proud to say we co-parent really well. We do family activities together like opening gifts on Christmas or spending the day with him on his birthday. He's 4. How do I have a 4-year-old? He's so smart, funny, and loves us both so much. We do 50-50 custody. It works for us. She's a great mom. I won't take that away from her. I'm sure this isn't the update some of you wanted to hear, but it's what works best for our son. I don't hate her anymore and she doesn't hate me anymore. We're both in a really good place. No, I don't ever want to be with her again. She has apologized to me for her affair. We had a really open and honest conversation with each other like 2 years ago and it really helped me heal. I got to air out all my feelings and so did she. AP moved to a new news station like 2.5 to 3 years ago. In a different state. They don't speak anymore. She's dating, but nothing serious. She does have a new job working in another local news station. She started working when our son was a year old. I'm doing really well. Enjoying watching our son grow up. I've been dating someone for the past 2 years. She's the best human I've ever met. She loves my son as her own. She really worked with me to mend my trust issues. Ironically, we met at work. Even my ex likes her and has no problem with her being around our son. Don't worry, I waited a full year to introduce her to our son. Just wanted you all to know things to get better, and although things didn't work out the way I had initially planned, I'm still incredibly happy and our son is thriving. Story 3, reconciling, saw him messaging other women and completely lost it. I truly feel like I have lost it. My BF emotionally cheated on me for months the first half of our relationship. I caught him flirting with numerous women, including 2 exes. He lied about a lot. He said he didn't fess up to it until I saw the evidence in his phone because he didn't want to lose me. It broke me in a lot of ways he hasn't fully grasped. We've been together for a year. I've been struggling all along. Day was almost 4 months ago. Things have gotten better in some ways, worse in others. I still feel so angry. Initially, I was just sad. I felt like maybe I just wasn't enough for him, but I was so in love I couldn't leave. I still had hope. I felt like he could change. And in a lot of ways he has, but lately, he's slipped up. I recently saw he was looking up one of the exes he'd flirted with. He went back to looking up Insta models and porn. He started messaging other women he used to flirt with. He says they're just friends and the messages weren't necessarily inappropriate, but they really worried me and I completely lost it on him. I'm realizing how much his actions have broken me. I feel like I have no confidence anymore. I worry almost all the time. I am so mad I could spit. I don't know how to move on, especially since he started messaging other women again. The messages weren't necessarily inappropriate. He was sending memes and replying to their stories. He responded to one with a which immediately triggered me. I couldn't see her story, so I couldn't prove he was flirting, but I definitely jumped to conclusions and just lost my shit on him. I feel stupid and out of control. I left the house for a bit. He kept telling me to come home. I got a drink instead. When I got back, he told me incessantly that he loved me and that he was mine. He wasn't talking to anyone like that, he was just talking to friends. He insisted and swore he wasn't flirting. He was responding to pictures of them with their kids. I feel stupid, but I'm also angry he feels the need to give these women so much attention. They aren't good friends, they barely acknowledged his messages, and I keep questioning his intentions. He acts like it's mindless, like he's just sharing funny content and celebrating their milestones. But these are women he was clearly attracted to before. There were old messages of him complimenting them and asking them out. So even if they're harmless, why is he reaching out? Am I overreacting? Or is this reaction somewhat justified? Since then, we talked. He said he meant nothing by the messages and he didn't see that what did was wrong. After I explained my feelings, how it looked like he was looking for attention from these women, one, a friend he used to have a thing for, dated briefly, and has liked her nudes/complimented. The other, someone he's worked with he used to hit on constantly and asked out, and how it made me feel overall. I asked him to stop communicating with women he's had these histories with as part of reconciliation because those are the kinds of women he continuously flirted with during the first half of our relationship. Well, he ended up agreeing to stop communicating that way. He said he understood how it could make me uncomfortable and look a certain way. He also started unfollowing a lot of the random women/Insta model type accounts I'd been asking him to do for months. But then, he deleted all their messages. And messages with other women. he deleted all the messages he sent while cheating. For some reason, him deleting the messages makes things even worse. Now I feel like he's just hiding things and will continue to do so. Now I really won't know if he's still messaging them or not. Am I being silly, or was that a bone-headed move on his part? I am heavily considering leaving still, but it is devastating to me. To accept that our dreams are dying. That this person I chose to be with, wanted to have a family with, and grow old with will have to be removed from my life over fucking Instagram BS. That he's willing to risk it this way. Again, I just don't see how trust could be restored when he keeps doing this kind of stuff. But I'm trying to get outer perspective before drawing conclusions I may be overreacting about. Story 4, why would she tell me? Roughly 13 months ago, kind of before Xmas, my now ex-wife told me she wanted a divorce. We were married 11 years and together 18 with a 9-year-old daughter. I believe she felt disconnected from me and felt more like roommates than husband and wife, considering my line of work and all, because during the years in our rare arguments she always mentioned she would want a divorce. I don't know, maybe at some point she didn't see a value in putting in the work in our relationship. Anyhow, it took around 2 weeks to find out that actually she met a work colleague at her office and she cheated with him for about 2 months by her words, although I can't believe that they could reach that level of intimacy in just 2 months on stolen times. She works remote from home and rarely went to the office and actually meet with the guy at his place. I tries to reconcile, to go to therapy together, to try to fix this, but her mind was set on divorce. So in February I gave her an amicably divorce. I couldn't fight for my daughter because in my country the child can be listened for her wishes after the age of 10, and infidelity is a no fault for parenthood. It took me a tremendous amount of work after she moved from our apartment 3 months after divorce, to arrange our ex-house and sell it, all alone without help from her. During this time she moved in a rented apartment hole. I stayed with my parents until I got my shit together. Still, this guy bothered me, and to my fault I researched him and found out that he is 8 years older than my ex-wife. He was married 2 times, and during his second marriage he had a daughter the same age with mine, with a third woman, and 3 years out, he divorced and fathered 2 more children with this third woman but not marrying her. So I don't personally know the guy, but from my line of work I know a wolf when I see one. Although my ex-wife called her affair a mistake, she owned it and accepted it, calling it an eye-opener that made her aware that our marriage was done and she loved me but not in love with me anymore. She wanted out to regain her freedom, her independence, and to make her own decisions. Ironically, the independence and freedom she wished, I got, and didn't even wanted them. I sometimes feel lost and confused and alone. I offered her the possibility that I be the resident parent and her to have visiting rights anytime she wishes, to be able to live her life as she wishes, and without having to pay alimony because I didn't want it. I only wanted to live my life peacefully with my daughter. But she became defensive and told me our daughter is her life and will do anything for her. And according to the laws in my country, I get my daughter every other weekend. Truth be told, I asked for her in other periods of time and didn't meet resistance, as she agreed for me to pick her up every time I could get her. Still, after 5 months after moving to her rented apartment, she moved with the guy in his bigger apartment, rented still according to my research. I know he brings his 3 children periodically and keeps them for a week or 2 at times because their mother works and I guess she needs the spare time and he need to demonstrate to my ex that he is husband material. Ironically, I have her at friends on FB and although I never contacted her and neither did she, I see her posts about being in a relationship with a narcissist and being left by a narcissist. After the divorce, now, I have finished buying my own apartment in which I moved from my parents' house, but still close to theirs. Also, my apartment is close to my daughter's school for me to be able to travel by foot when I have her and must take her to school, and also to be close to her friend which she holds very dear and keeps in touch, a girl 1 year older than her with whose parents I formed a strong friendship. I know that is not what my ex-wife wished. During our divorce she stated that she would want for us to remain friends, but I refused her. I was too hurt and couldn't be friends with a person that I loved, that I have some love for, but betrayed me so much. There is no trust left. Yesterday, my ex sent me a text, being the only way we communicate. We text shortly when I'm coming to pick up our daughter, when I take her back and school stuff, but rarely. She communicated that she is pregnant. Only this, a short text in which she acknowledges that by being the only way we communicate she wanted to tell me she is pregnant. I congratulated her and wished her an easy pregnancy knowing how hard was her first one. She gave birth by C-section. But what still bugs me is the fact that for the time that we were married I wanted another child but she didn't. She even said that her first one was so bad that she doesn't want to go through this again. She said she would rather adopt than go through it again. but why would she tell me this? Why did she think I needed to know? Having our child, his 3 and a newborn 1, where would be her so much sought freedom and independence? Story 5, she told me she was pregnant, and then that she had cheated. My partner of 3 years and I are both 31. She told me November 14th to pick up some pregnancy tests on the way home from work, and tested positive. We have been struggling with infertility, likely on my end, though we haven't done testing, so I was thrilled. We have a 4-year-old son, but he isn't mine biologically. The morning of November 15th was one of the best days of my life. I felt virile, I felt alive, I felt excited. I got home from work and she was playing with her engagement ring and said she needed to tell me something. She admitted she had been sleeping with one of her guy friends for a month. She had been going out for girls' nights, and I had been staying home with our son. Obviously, I was destroyed. At first she said it was all safe, then admitted it wasn't 100% safe. A few days later I felt sick, and I felt like she was hiding more. I pressed, and she confessed that he wasn't the only one, and that she had been sending pictures to other guys as far back as 2 years ago, and had been in contact with multiple ex-partners, including some women. She wants me to stay, she wants the baby to be mine, she wants me to marry her. I don't want any of those things. I went from the happiest new dad, living my dream, to literally not wanting anything to do with her or the baby. Fast forward a month, and I've accepted that it could be mine, paternity test scheduled for December 31st, results likely late January, and if it is my baby I will stay around until it is born. I will help out, I will support her while she breastfeeds, I will be a father to my child. But I will leave her when everything is settled, and I will be pursuing a standard custody agreement for the kids. She doesn't know it yet, because I'm worried if I tell her I plan to leave then she will just act out and do more damage. She has already been verbally aggressive, and has made some concerning comments about alleging I'm abusive. Conversations and messages have been recorded and saved where possible. How can I better find peace and prepare myself for the storm to come while I am actively living in an environment that is toxic to me? Baby is due July 21st and I am starting to believe that it is mine, obviously won't accept it until paternity comes back. How can I live with myself knowing I won't be there for my kids the way I should be? What can I do in the meantime to ensure that I get the best possible case for myself in a custody battle? There is a decent chance that she will be playing dirty if I don't give in, and she will definitely continue to verbally poke and prod at me, as well as spread rumors to her family and friends to try and save face. Story 6, should I stay or should I go? I've M42 been married to my wife, F41, for 11 years, and we have 3 kids, 9, 7, and 5. For most of our marriage, I felt like we had a happy and stable relationship. However, over the past few months, everything seems to have unraveled. In early October, I discovered that while we were both at a party, she got drunk and flirted with another man. They were outside in the backyard together alone at night for about 10 minutes. She insists there was no physical contact and that she only told him he was attractive, but I have my doubts. This felt like a massive betrayal, and we had a serious conversation where I told her this was a deal breaker for me. I set clear boundaries for the future, and she promised to respect them. Then, in early November, I found out she had continued talking to him online. I'd never looked through her phone in all our years together, but something felt off, so I checked and my suspicions were confirmed. She downplayed it, saying the conversations didn't mean much, they were mostly talking about how I was doing, and that he was giving her the type of attention he did at the party. But she deleted all the messages, leaving me to wonder what had really happened. In early December, she finally admitted that some of their conversations had been sexual and that they had talked about meeting up in a few months if things didn't improve between us. When I asked her why she kept doing this, she said things like she didn't think she could hurt me or that she wants to fix things but doesn't know how. She didn't want to admit to herself what she had done and she also didn't want me to get a bad impression of this guy. From my perspective, this all feels like a deliberate decision to disregard our marriage and my trust. I'm not sure I have it in me to rebuild, but I also am concerned for my children. We are going to therapy and she seems like she wants to work things out. But I know I'll never be able to forget this and feel like I deserve a faithful spouse. I feel stuck. On one hand, I've invested 11 years into this relationship and have 3 young kids to think about. On the other hand, I feel like the boundaries I set have been blatantly disregarded, and I don't know if I can stay in a marriage where trust has been shattered. She thinks this could be the start of us creating a better relationship built on honesty and truthfulness. For those who faced similar situations, How did you decide whether to stay and try to rebuild or walk away? What helped you find clarity? Update. She has told me she has cut off communications with this guy. I have not found any evidence she has chatted with him since late October. She also contacted his girlfriend and told her the story she told me. We have been going to marriage counseling for the past month and I've been seeing an individual therapist as well. She is trying to get on the schedule for individual therapy too. Story 7. GF cheated on me, am I to blame? Sorry for any mistakes, English isn't my first language. TLDR at the bottom. I, M24, met my now ex-GF, F23, at work 2 years ago. We started talking, switched numbers and we'd chat every day almost non-stop. After a month chatting all the time, it was clear that we both were really invested in getting to know each other. So I invited her to dinner, it was great and everything, ended up making out after I dropped her at her place. Second date we had our first time having sex, I thought it was kind of soon, but we were really fond of each other. We spent 3 months going out on dates, getting to know each other better. I don't like the idea of dating more than one person at a time, so I told her early on that since we hit it off so well, I wanted the relationship to be exclusive. She told me that it already was. After those 3 months, she met my family and I met hers. That's where all the problems began. At first, they treated me well but I could already see they were quite a functional family. It wasn't long before all the drama started. Her mother and grandmother are really abusive, her father is hopeless, he doesn't care about his family anymore and gave up on them long ago. After a couple of visits there, I could hear them constantly comparing me to my GF's exes, which was pretty annoying for me, but this was only the start. I live in a city nearby, it's a 15-minute trip. My GF started coming to my house to spend the weekend, it started out great, her family didn't have a problem with it and mine neither. After 2 months, her family learned that her mother was cheating on her father but it wasn't that big of a surprise, she's not a great person to say the least. They started having a lot of heated arguments on her house, even when I was there visiting. I never wanted to get involved in any of that, so I stopped visiting them. That was their opportunity to spread their misery. Every time my GF would come to my house to spend the weekend, both her mother and grandmother started calling her phone non-stop, making accusation, threats, calling her every name that you can imagine. This would only stop when my GF sent them some money, that'd shut them up pretty quickly. What really got me was that they started coming after me, so whenever I'd go to my ex-GF house to take her and go out do something, they started calling me names too, making accusations, threats, the same way they do to her. One day, her grandmother even said that she'd get someone to hurt me, in a physical way. They made a big scene every time I went to their house, the whole neighborhood saw I getting scolded at least 5 times in the middle of the street by her family. This went on for 6 months at least, I only endured this because I really loved her with all my heart. When we hit 1 year together, her family became unbearable, they started coming after us all the time. I still live with my parents, so I talked with them and we invited my GF to come live with us, since my family really liked her and we have a very stable condition in general. And I just got a new job that made double the income, while she stayed working at our old company. It was great for the first 3 months, we went on 2 trips that we really wanted to, sex life was just amazing. But we had some ongoing problems that we never worked out, maybe because we were really invested at her family's problems. I'll start with my mistakes. The first is that I had some retroactive jealousy. Needless to say, it wasn't a great thing for us and made us argue every now and then. I'll take the blame for that one, really childish of my part, I know. I also didn't like her being way too open and smiley around the guys at her work. Bear that in mind for a minute. I always thought that we shouldn't have this kind of behavior when we're in a serious relationship, so I didn't have any female friends, went from home to work and vice versa. I'd always tell her exactly all the places that I went and with who, well in advance. We'd go out pretty often together, did the things that we liked, and my family had a great relationship with us. Now she, on the other hand, would lie constantly about small things. I actually noticed it since the start of our relationship. She could never be 100% honest, and I always told her that I didn't like that and we should be sincere with each other. It got worse in our last 2 months. She started going out to eat with her work colleagues and would never tell me. Even when I directly asked her if she went out, she told me no, but I already knew she went. The lies got even more frequent. She deleted almost all of our pictures together from her Instagram, deleted my name on her bio. One day she said she was really confused and couldn't stand staying with me anymore. She loved me but couldn't stand my unfounded jealousy and that I was ignoring her. So she was feeling abandoned and wanted to end our relationship and move back to her parents' house. I tried convincing her to stay, but she wanted to go anyway. But something was feeling really off, so I took her to her parents' house with all of the belongings. The next day, I decided that I should disconnect all her accounts on my computer. That's when I saw that she sent a sex Instagram reel that said what she wanted to do in bed with him. That's a guy from her work. My heart dropped. I just had discovered that she cheated on me with a coworker that's 20 years older than her. I could feel my heart beating in my throat. It was the worst feeling that I ever had. I confronted her about it, and she lied, as she always did. She told me that she didn't do anything, and it was all my fault because my jealousy was sickening, and she didn't cheat on me. So, she went on to blame me for everything. And now, 3 weeks later, I learned through mutual friends that she's already dating another guy that's also her coworker. I always helped her through everything, all her needs, difficult times, college chores, work. I was the only one helping her from day one. I just gave my world to her, and she's the most beautiful girl that I've seen. I was madly in love with her. I did everything that I could. Now she's already with another man, having fun, while I'm broke, missing every part of her. I can't stand that the woman I loved so much already went to bed with another man while I remember some of our intimate moments. Could it be that my retroactive jealousy pushed her to do this? TLDR, ex-GF suffered with abusive family, invited her to live with me and cheated on me with a coworker. Am I to blame because of my retroactive jealousy? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to give it a like and hit that subscribe button to follow cheating love stories for more amazing videos. Turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. See you in the next one.